Hey friends, tonight's story is grim and real. We're stepping into a time when the world truly believed it was ending not through war or fire, but through silence, rot, and breathless terror. This is the story of the Black Death, a plague so devastating. It did not just kill millions, it broke the spine of medieval society and quietly paved the way for the world we live in today. So before we begin, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're here for deep, sleepless dives into history. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. I love seeing this community come together from every corner of the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe grab a warm drink or let a soft fan hum in the background, because what we're about to uncover is not a bedtime story, it's history's most haunting turning point. But let's begin. What if the end of the world already happened, not with nuclear fire or alien invasion, but with a single infected flea? What if the silence of history hides a scream so loud it shattered an entire civilization? In the year 1347, death came not in armor or warships, but quietly. Aboard a dozen ships docking in Sicily, the sailors were either dead or dying, their bodies covered in black boils, their eyes lifeless. What had arrived was not cargo, it was the apocalypse. What followed was not just a plague, but 1,000 silent revolutions. This is the story of the Black Death, the disease that did not just kill millions, it changed everything. It began with trade, the veins of the medieval world, from the bustling Silk Road to the merchant ports of the Mediterranean. Goods, people, and ideas flowed freely. But in the mid-14th century, something else began to move, invisible, silent, and utterly devastating. The plague, caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, likely originated in the steppes of Central Asia and spread westward through Mongol armies and merchant caravans. By the time it reached the Crimean port of Kaffa, Mongols were reportedly catapulting infected corpses over city walls, the first known act of biological warfare. From there, fleeing Genoese traders unknowingly carried the disease to Europe aboard 12 ships. When they docked at Messina in October 1347, few understood what was unfolding, but within weeks, the infection surged through Italy, then France, Spain, England, and the rest of Europe like wildfire and dry timber. The symptoms were grotesque and swift: sudden fever, chills, vomiting, and the hallmark buboes, black, swollen lymph nodes that oozed pus and blood. Death came within days, the streets filled with the stench of decay. In Paris, up to 800 people died each day. In Florence, 60% of the population was gone within a year. Cities turned into cemeteries. Pope Clement VI, surrounded by death in Avignon, ordered fires lit constantly to purify the air. In England, entire villages vanished. In London, death carts rolled daily, collecting bodies from mass graves like East Smithfield, now a site studied by modern archaeologists who still find layers of death stacked like parchment. Chroniclers across Europe struggled to put it into words. One wrote, "No bells, no tears, no funerals. The living were not enough to bury the dead. In many places, they burned the bodies, hoping smoke might stop the curse. But nothing worked. The rich fled, the poor were trapped. Clergy died as fast as the laity in some monasteries. All the monks perished. Children were orphaned en masse, and mothers abandoned their infants in fear. Some turned to desperate prayers, others lost faith entirely. As panic spread, so did paranoia. Jews were falsely accused of poisoning wells, leading to massacres across the continent. In Strasbourg in 1349, over 2,000 Jews were burned alive. In Mainz, the entire Jewish quarter was destroyed. One survivor wrote, "We did not die from plague, but from our neighbors in the spiritual vacuum left by a powerless church." New religious movements emerged. Flagellants, barefoot, half-naked pilgrims marched through cities, beating themselves with iron-tipped whips to atone for humanity's sins. Astrologers blamed the alignment of Saturn and Jupiter. Others blamed corrupted air, earthquakes, or even demonic cats. In many towns, cat populations were slaughtered, which ironically allowed infected rats to flourish unchecked. Plague doctors appeared, their iconic beaked masks filled with herbs to block the miasma, but their tools were medieval guesswork. And then, as suddenly as it came, it faded for a time. Between 1347 and 1351, the Black Death had wiped out 25 to 50 million people, nearly one-third of Europe's population. But the consequences stretched far beyond the death toll. With so many workers gone, labor became scarce. Fields went unplowed. Cities understaffed. Peasants, once bound to the land, were now in demand. They demanded wages, freedom, Mobility many landlords desperate to keep their estates running agreed the old feudal order, cracked in England. It culminated in the Peasants' Revolt of 1381, when thousands marched on London demanding equality. A rebel leader, John Ball, famously declared when Adam delved and Eve span, who was then the gentleman the social hierarchy, once ordained by God and enforced by sword, was being questioned from the ground up. Bloodletting, purging, and charms, none of it worked. The church, humiliated by its failure to protect its flock, began to lose its absolute grip. Survivors began to think differently. Some turned away from religion, others became fanatics. Art reflected this existential trauma. Medieval paintings shifted from biblical glory to morbid danse macabre, seen skeletons dancing with nobles, farmers, and priests alike, a visual reminder that death came for all, rich or poor. Memento mori became a cultural obsession. Even fashion changed, with dark colors, shrouds, and mourning becoming part of everyday life. Universities, desperate to understand what had happened, reopened questions of science, medicine, and philosophy. Ancient Greek and Islamic texts, long ignored, found new readers. Anatomy, once taboo, became necessary. Surgery evolved. Reason crept into corners, once ruled by doctrine, and just as people began to rebuild, the plague returned in 1361 and 1369 again and again. Some cities were struck 5, 6, even 10 times over the next century. But people had changed. They were no longer silent victims. They adapted, they resisted, and from this pain emerged something profound. The beginning of the modern world, the Renaissance, was not born in peace. It was born from plague pits and collapsed cathedrals. The Enlightenment did not spring from calm reflection. It was seated in the chaos of the Black Death. The trauma of the 14th century shattered the medieval worldview, and in its place came new ideas about individual rights, empirical knowledge, humanism, and even the foundations of capitalism. The Black Death did not just kill, it unmade and remade Europe. It was death, and it was rebirth. Behind every statistic lies a story: a mother burying her child, a scribe collapsing over a half-written manuscript, a peasant rising up because he realized that even kings bleed. It was, in every sense, the end of the old world. And perhaps, if you listen closely, beneath the quiet of our modern lives, you can still hear them, the whispers of a vanished age, carried on the wind from plague pits long sealed, but never forgotten.